Okay, what I want to talk about in this movie is just making those sketches for your sketchbook. If you've read the syllabus, you know you need to make about 3 sketches a week, and I'd like you to do sketches from life. So that just means finding little objects that you can draw, and the whole purpose of this is to kind of improve not just your drawing abilities, but your ability to see. I think if you sketch a bit, you'll get more comfortable with ideas of proportion and composition, which things look more dynamic, which things look less so. If we look at just this tape dispenser for a second, you'll notice that if I were to draw it just from the side, it's not very interesting. It doesn't have a lot of information. It kind of looks like the tape dispenser we expect to see. If I draw it from the front, I have kind of a similar problem, even less information in this particular case. So I'm going to use a 3/4 view, and that just means simply that I see part of the top, I see part of the front and part of the side. You can do the same thing when you're drawing people. 3/4 view of a head obviously reveals a lot about the structure of that. So part of this is kind of finding an interesting thing to draw and then finding an interesting position. Now the other thing that you can do once the drawing's made is crop it too to make it more interesting. So I'm going to just set this up here. This is kind of awkward because I have this little camera sitting to my left doing the video. So I'm using less space than I'd actually use. I've drawn a little line along here just so I make sure I'm not running across drawing stuff that's outside of your view. Now also remember that I'm drawing this from a slightly different perspective than that of the camera, so it's going to look a little different. But anyway, I guess the key thing is, how do you start? When you're drawing something like this, how do you start? If you've had drawing class before, you've probably heard the whole thing of breaking something down into smaller parts. So instead of drawing the tape dispenser as this weird compound shape, first thing I'm going to do is just draw out a rectangle. And when I'm drawing the rectangle, I'm trying to get the object to go off into perspective. And what that means is that when you have 2 lines that are parallel to each other in the structure, they actually should diminish as they go off the page, and there should be some vanishing point out to the right here somewhere where these lines would meet. You know that you've got problems in perspective if you draw lines that are like this. Then they'll never meet. So when I first start drawing stuff, I like to just kind of eyeball the lines I'm drawing, and I'd like to see if they have a chance of converging somewhere. So same thing, I'm going to come back here, and the line that's going across the top here is going to be it would be converging off in space somewhere over off on this point. Now if I were to do perspective drawing, hopefully it would land at the same horizon line as the points over here. This is what's called a 2-point perspective. Now I don't want you to worry about all that for doing this. What I really care about is just making sure that you have kind of a sense of how to put something into space, if anything, just to make you more comfortable. Now I'm going to draw this and do a little bit of the top, and you can see if you look at it from the side that this guy comes up a little bit more than halfway up to the top. So I'm going to just set that back down again and add just a little bit more. It's not coming up a full half across here. And again, I'm just making these lines here so that they would diminish as they went off into space. Same thing with this line. Bring it down. And I'm going to basically draw a cube, or kind of a complex cube, to get started. And then we'll break out some of the curves in here in a minute. But the cube will kind of get us going. So now if I look at these lines, the lines look like they would diminish as they go out into space, which is what I'm shooting for. Okay, so the next thing here, let me see if I can get this lined up again closer to where I am, is I want to start carving out, obviously, the shape itself. So this is where you kind of start to cut away at this block. And if I look at it, it actually has a little bit of this funky taper on it, but I'm going to just trim away along the top here. And then this comes around the back side too. Move this back a little bit, sorry. I'm going to just trim around this back side. And obviously we won't see that side, so when I cut this off, this just gets trimmed off here. This comes around, it's actually pretty flat along the back just for a little bit, and then it has a little roundness along the bottom. And then move it forward so you can see as this comes along, it kind of runs up the side again and get something like that. I'm going to just continue this on the other side, on the other side. And you know, if this were to go into space, you know, if we were to draw that little emptiness, we might do a line like that, but I'm going to just make sure that this curve tapers into the other one. Just draw out the top of this. And this guy kind of tapers back a bit. And of course, you could get a French curve or something if you were trying to do this, but again, we're just kind of working on getting the shape made. So I'm going to just build this around on the other side. And since it's somewhat transparent, we would see that come through. And then I'm really concerned about this little guy, where the hole is for this. So this is a little trickier. You can see here that the hole isn't dead center of this. The hole's actually kind of more in the front side. So I'm going to just kind of rough out, again, another rectangle so I can kind of get these points correct. So let me just make sure they're diminishing. And again, I apologize. Normally when I'm sketching, I like to have the thing up in my face, because there's going to be all kinds of errors as you're drawing back into space yourself. You're trying to draw something three-dimensional on a two-dimensional surface, and you're still evaluating that three-dimensionally. So I guess another successful thing to do when you're sketching is try to get either your head right over the sketch, or better yet, work at a drawing table where you can elevate the table up so it's nice and flat as you're facing it. Okay, so anyway, I'm drawing out this area here, and again, if we look at the side, it's got kind of an opening on one side, so let's see about now kind of picking a center point. Now, where's the center point in this rectangle? I'll just draw a line right through the rectangle, and that sets the center point for you, and then we'll just kind of build a circle off of that. And again, I'm just kind of guesstimating this thing as I'm building around, but I'm just trying to carve away kind of the same amount in each of these different areas. And that allows me to draw an oval in space. And it's a little fat on the bottom, but that's okay. And then if we look at this, you can see there's actually some nice reflection lines that come up as you look through here. And depending on the thickness of it and your positioning, you might actually see the hole on the other side. Now, same thing for the tape. The tape comes down here, and instead of drawing all of the tape out, I'm going to just kind of follow the curve I made already. Kind of comes up, and then it swings over and across. Tape comes down, swings up, and the tape on this side, it's a little lower, comes down, swings up as well. You can kind of see how that works. And of course, the rest of the tape dispenser is underneath this. And I would go through and I'd erase. This eraser is rock hard though, so I don't have an eraser to break this out. But essentially, that's kind of how you start these images. You start by a cube and then start breaking the thing down. Now, you don't have to draw all of your stuff like this, but if you've got a complex shape and you're not quite sure how to tackle it, doing this process is a good start. And then, of course, you clarify where your line work is, and be positive about your strokes at that point. As you come through, go ahead and darken them up a little bit and let them do the work for you. This part of the curve is the tricky part, and you can tell that I'm not being very decisive through there either. So I get the wrong angle to draw that line at. But now we've got the tape dispenser with the tape coming off, and it's a good initial start. What else should you put into a drawing like this? Well, you can shade it. You can shade any number of ways. If you want to use the side of the graphite, you can shade it that way. I love cross-hatching. I always think that cross-hatching is kind of a neat way of getting a sense of shadow. Sometimes following the contour is a nice way to build out. I like to put in a ground shadow. Notice that this has two different shadows because I'm in an office, so it has kind of this flat shadow right below it. And then it's got a softer shadow that's playing out because there's another light in the room. And there's actually some little translucent marks there too, where part of the transparent object is showing through. I believe that's called caustic lighting, where light actually comes through a translucent shape. You see that in fish bowls and things like that all the time. So now we've got something in space. It's not just floating out there, it's actually on the ground somewhere. Let's see how that looks. So, it's coming along. It's definitely not great, but it's a sketch. The whole purpose of this, why are we doing sketchbook junk in Illustrator? I'm sure that's a question. The purpose of this is to get more confident with your drawing skills. So as you work in other items, you sit down and draw it first. It's a lot easier to do what I just did by hand than to sit down in Illustrator and think about, okay, what kind of stroke, what kind of fill, oh, this isn't working right, oh, that isn't precise enough. Everything about Illustrator is about finishing. It's not really about creating. It's not really about playing around and trying some stuff out. Now, if you're comfortable with that and you like doing that, then that's fine. Use a tool that you're comfortable sketching with. Maybe you get out a Wacom tablet and you sit down, and using Illustrator is just as easy as Sketchbook. The thing I like about Sketchbooks, though, too, is that you can take them anywhere. Now that there's iPads and stuff, I guess you can do that as well, but you're finger painting with an iPad. But whatever the thing, the key is, with your sketchbook, start producing some sketches that are interesting to you. So anyway, think about these things as you're producing your work. Sketchbook should be nice and loose. You're not turning in anything finished. Sketching is not about finishing. It's about kind of capturing an idea, capturing a moment. Let me know if you have questions. For the online class, you can scan these and just send me your scans in a PDF, or you can just, if you happen to be in the area, you could turn in your sketchbook. You're going to turn it in once middle of the term and once the end of the term. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks.